So, Mr. Anthony Logan Cole, welcome. How are you?
I'm grand. How are you?
First of all, where are you?
I'm in Watford at the moment.
What
Um,
London?
yes, so I just spent 2.5 weeks quarantining in London proper,
Right.
and now we're here to do tech because the show opens next Wednesday.
So tell me, because it's got quite a long name, hasn't it? So it's Misty Dusty Rose, and I'll let you finish it.
Yes, Mr. Dusty Rose's Ghost Show, um, which is yes, it's a very very long name.
No, I thought it had an even longer name. Was
No, that's it.
Mr.
Mr. Dusty
Dusty
Rose's
Rose,
Ghost Show.
so wasn't it called Mr. Dusty Rose spins tales and makes things go bump in the night? Or was that just a strapline?
Oh, that's the tagline. That's the marketing promo.
Oh, I thought that was
Uh,
the title. I was oh wow.
oh, that is a lot of title. That is a
That
lot
is a
of
long
title.
title. But yeah, so tell me about this. So is this a brand new show, or is this something that you've worked on before? And
I have worked on variations on this show for a long time, but this production is brand new. Um, because I decided that the best thing to do was, go on a national tour during a global pandemic.
why
Uh,
not?
it's a show that's very special to me, which I felt that if given this opportunity, I had to just take it and share this experience. It's also nice to get out of the States right now because
Right.
we're a little crazy right now.
Yeah. But you are taking the show back to America for Halloween, is that right?
We have four shows in New York, private. They're through the Museum of Interesting Things, which is a private museum that collects all these strange and unusual artifacts. And they have a whole spiritualism collection that they're bringing out for Halloween. So we're doing the show in conjunction with this special presentation.
And are you quite into Halloween? Because I know obviously America and UK is quite different. Do you recognise the differences?
Yeah. So my dad's from Dublin,
Right.
and my mom's an American, and I kind of grew up splitting the difference and spending equal time. Um, Now mostly in the UK because a lot of my family moved from Ireland to London. So splitting my time between the US and the UK, um, I kind of got a balance of both. I love spooky things, not just Halloween things, just spooky things. So even like A Christmas Carol and all those like Dickensian stories, the Woman in Black, all these things. Yeah, I like spooky things. I like personal, intimate, spooky things, which is why, I started my career as a musical theater performer. And it's been an interesting transition. I spent 5 years doing Les Mis,
Yeah.
which I, love and would do again in a heartbeat. And shows like Jekyll and Hyde. And I did the off-Broadway company of Frankenstein for a while. Um, but then I fell in love with immersive theater mostly through the work of Punchdrunk and Lafont here in the UK. And I realized that the things that I had been creating for me since I was in high school was immersive theater. There was a name for these weird, experiential productions that I had always been creating for myself. So I've now kind of transitioned to both working in musical theater and being a creator and a director in the immersive world.
And obviously with COVID at the moment, do you think it's giving shows like this an opportunity? Because there's a big cry for one-man shows and, like I say, for new, different ways of experiencing theatre in an immersive way, in a COVID-secure, socially distanced audience. Have you kind of like tapped into that as kind of like, yes, this is why we need to do it now?
Well, it's given this show an opportunity to go to places that I wouldn't normally get to bring a brand new show to. In Manchester, we're playing the Antwerp Mansion, which was a Victorian mansion that was turned into a rave hall in the 90s and then has been sitting abandoned. We're playing a space on the West End when we're in London.
Yeah.
We're playing Pump House Arts here in Watford as well, which is, an old pump house station turned into a theater. So I get to play these really interesting, very different spaces that probably wouldn't be as available to me in normal times.
And yeah, to tell me about a little bit more about the character then, Mr. Distance. So you're playing a character, right?
I am playing a character. He is a character that I play in nightclubs in New York City.
This is a 20-penny nail. Check it out. Make sure it doesn't fold, it doesn't bend, there's no smoke and mirrors.
Now keep in mind, in Houdini's time, they didn't have television, so this might be what they did for fun.
Oh, that's real.
For your entertainment.
What are you doing?
And I keep pretending that you're just...
This is somebody who might not be young, but is young at heart. This is somebody who... And the smirk confirmed it. Yeah, fair enough. You're a Ravenclaw, correct? Yeah. What's interesting is, would you say that your life took a deviation from this?
Yeah.
A big one? Like a big family?
Yeah.
Did you want to be a nun?
Jabreze, this doesn't hurt. This does.
Over the past couple of years, in my downtime in between doing, big musicals, I found myself more and more drawn into the world of nightlife and immersive theater. And so I had created this character for myself to play for all these variety and nightclub shows. His name is Mr. Dusty Rose. He is a slightly vintagey gentleman who... he's a mind reader. He's an old-fashioned kind of charlatan, and he's just a lot of fun. And so for this show, I just get to sit around with the audience and tell ghost stories, and things happen in the dark to the audience, which is a lot of fun.
And within that, so obviously cabaret performers around the world, and especially here in the UK, are having to find ways to kind of adapt, because obviously they have to respect the distance between an audience. So normally where you would be right up and engaging with audience, are you having to modify your show?
We've had to restructure the show about 4 or 5 times to make it, as COVID safe as humanly possible. I'm somebody who likes to put my hand on somebody's shoulder and whisper in their ear, and that's just something that we can't do right now, and that's okay. It's actually been a very compelling challenge, and I'm very lucky that I have a really great director on the show who we have taken these things and said, okay, we've got to find new ways to explore, new ways to engage in a way that makes the audience feel safe. I don't want anyone fearing for their health at any moment while they attend the show. I want them to be able to leave that outside, be able to relax, feel comfortable, and enjoy the show.
Absolutely. So yeah, you just mentioned your director, so Monica Blaise Leavitt. What a great name.
Yeah, Monica is absolutely a genius. We've worked together on a couple of projects. I've directed her in things, she's directed me in things, and we've got a really beautiful working relationship. And it's been interesting to be on the road, just the two of us, for this show. And she comes from a Shakespeare background as a director. So it's amazing to have somebody who has such a classical eye for theater, looking at a piece that is very non-traditional.
So is it important, when you're creating a one-man show, is it helpful to get somebody else's collaboration and insight?
I really believe so. When I first started creating work, I was the performer, I was the stage manager, I was the director, I was the writer, all these things. As much as I love doing that, you lose perspective on things. You become too close to the product to realize what works and what doesn't work. Even with this show, there's a moment in the show that I'm frustrated with at the moment because I don't feel it's delivering the way that I want it to deliver. And I have to trust when Monica says, no, it works. You have to trust me when I say that it works. And so, working with someone that you trust and somebody who can tell you that works great, that moment that you really love, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's a really, really beautiful thing. So when you're creating work, I believe in surrounding myself with people who are better than me at everything. Having producers, people like Oliver, who are performers and creators of their own, sit and watch rehearsal and say, this works, this doesn't work. Did you mean this to come off this way? Because this is how this came across. Just makes you a better performer and a better creative.
And yeah, just talking about that, have you been rehearsing on Zoom? Is that how you've been getting around it, presenting it to your producers? And
so we have a couple of producers in New York, and we had created a quarantine bubble where Monica and I were in a room rehearsing every day.
Yeah.
And then they quarantined, and then they came and saw a couple of dress rehearsals in New York. And it was just a couple of us in an empty room, like in a rehearsal studio, which is a very strange experience. And then Oliver watched over Zoom, which is also a weird thing to adapt to as a performer.
So if we go right back to the beginning of lockdown, so you were in New York at the time, and has it been crazy this whole time? I mean, how have you been keeping busy? Because you teach, don't you, as well? Have you been doing a lot of that?
I do. Not as much as I wanted to. I had just started a job working for The Box, which is a nightclub in New York. There's one in London too.
Yeah.
Have one. Creating immersive things with them. And I was there like 3 weeks, and then everything shut down. Broadway shut down. And then I was attached to 2 incoming Broadway shows that we still have no idea whether those shows are still gonna be able to come in after all of this. And things were really scary in New York for about a month and a half. And then New York got itself under control. And New York's actually been, since then, doing really, really well.
Yeah.
Everyone is wearing masks. There are curfews. There's all kinds of, regulations going on. And so New York is doing pretty okay compared to the rest of the country. I want to do more teaching, but the problem is every brother and his sister who have, multiple Broadway credits are teaching right now.
Yeah.
And so it's a very, diverse market. So I have a couple of students and I love it, but, it's nice that I had this show to kind of take my attention, have something to really work on.
And have you been writing an album?
Yeah, I have a musical theater album that's coming out that, we're finishing up the orchestrations, and I get back in the studio to finish it once we get back from tour.
Amazing. And it's called Who I'd Be.
Mm-hmm. So it's show tunes. I'm doing Who I'd Be, obviously. Stars and Music of the Night, This Is the Moment, Dust and Ashes from Great Comet. And it's just, I've always wanted to put out, a studio album.
I guess I'd be a hero with sword and armor clashing, looking semi-dashing, a shield within my grip. Or else I'd be a Viking and live a life of daring, while smelling like a herring upon a Viking ship. I'd sail away, I'd see the world, I'd reach the farthest reaches, I'd feel the wind, I'd taste the salt and sea, and maybe storm some beaches. That's who I'd be.
That's something I've always wanted to do, and after doing Camp Morningwood at Playwrights Horizons last year, that experience really kind of compelled me to want to record something and put it out.
So let's talk about your career. So, like you say, 5 years in Les Mis. I mean, what a show.
I love it. I miss it a lot. I was very lucky to also get to do several different productions of the show, and got to re-explore. I primarily was a Javert or a Javert cover.
Yeah.
So tackling that role with a couple of different directors from a couple of different perspectives was very, very interesting. And then I would pop off and get to do an Oliver or a Jekyll and Hyde for a while, and then come back to Les Mis, which was such a great experience, but also, very stressful. It is a tough sing. It is a tough show. There was a point in time where I was covering multiple tracks in the show. So, staying on top of that kind of material and delivering it. Yeah, it is a long show. It is a long show. And those 2 show days, it's like a marathon sometimes. But, I love it a lot. It's a story that really I still find moving and compelling and interesting. Yeah. And then, I got to go off and do things like Rock of Ages, which was a totally different kind of experience. I didn't think the show was for me. I loved the show, but I didn't think I'd ever get a chance to do it. And then I found out that they normally cast classically trained singers to do the show. Then they send you to rock school for 2 weeks with this phenomenal voice teacher whose specialty is taking classical voices and teaching you to use that foundation to sing pop rock. And then you go into rehearsal. Because they found that that's the only way to have performers who can sustain 8 shows a week of that show. Because otherwise, if you're just wailing away after a couple of weeks, you're just going to be burned out.
That must be quite exhilarating to learn this new skill, learn a new way to use your voice.
It opened a lot of doors. It allowed me to play a lot more roles that I didn't think were available to me. It allowed me to do things like even Camp Morningwood I would never have been able to do without this kind of pop rock retraining of my voice. I would be doing Jekyll and Hyde and Les Mis and Oliver forever, which there's nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong at all, but it's nice to be able to explore different kinds of shows.
And it's such a good show. We've got it coming to the UK, hopefully next year when things start to settle down. And Beauty and the Beast, which...
Yes. Hopefully this means we're going to get the Broadway revival that we've also been promised. Hopefully this will be the transition for that. Yeah. That was the first show I ever saw on Broadway, was Beauty and the Beast. So it has a fondness in my heart, for sure.
Well, yeah, and they're obviously reuniting the original creative team, so it should be good. It should be a special show. Do you have any favourite shows?
Oh boy, yes, I really like Assassins. That's my favorite Sondheim, followed very swiftly by Sweeney Todd. Other favorite shows. Oh, my favorite show of all time. Is the longest running show in Germany. They tried to bring it to Broadway. It didn't work out so well. It's a show called Dance of the Vampires.
Yes.
It's my absolute favorite show of all time. I love it very much.
Do you think you could ever do it? Would you live in Germany?
Oh, you know what? Drew Sarich, who's a Broadway performer, has been in that show in Germany for the last couple of years. I would in a heartbeat. I would go in a heartbeat. I would learn German. I would do whatever it takes to be able to do that show, for sure.
Amazing. So obviously now you're in the UK, it's a bit weird with the restrictions and stuff. I mean, are you going to be kind of keeping yourself to yourself to keep safe, or are you disappointed that you're not going to be able to get out and about?
It's been really interesting because things have changed while we've been here.
Yeah.
Our whole tour schedule changed. We were supposed to have a kind of leisurely 3 weeks on the road. Now I'm doing 20 shows in 10 days in 4 cities, including multiple 5-hour drive into 2-show days. Which, if that's what it takes for me to be able to perform, right now, I'm happy to do it. But it's been very interesting because once the quarantine had passed and we had gotten tested and cleared to go out, I was looking forward to, being in a city that I love very much, that I spent a lot of time in growing up, and everything's closed. The streets are empty. I walked through the West End by myself one day, and it was just a very strange experience. Moving and beautiful, but very, very strange. I'm very glad I get to see a show tonight. I'm going to the opening night of the Gatsby Immersive is reopening tonight. So they invited me to come. So I'm very excited. I get to get dressed up. I get to go out to see a show, which I didn't expect to get to do.
Yeah.
It's been very strange, but I'm just glad that we're here.
Yeah, and there's a couple of so the last 5 years is reopening again next week, which if you get a chance to see that's a good one.
Who's in this production of Last 5 Years?
This one we've got Molly Lynch.
Okay.
Who, I think she recently went over to America in A Night at the Piazza.
Yes. Okay.
With Dove Cameron, and a new performer. He's British, called Ollie Higginson.
Lovely.
I think he very recently graduated. But yeah, it's a stunning production. They've changed it up a little bit. And obviously it's for the Suffolk Playhouse. It's the first time they've opened since COVID for an audience. So it's going to be interesting.
It's been amazing to watch the West End gear up to reopen because Broadway is not going to be opening for quite a while.
Yeah.
And it's been beautiful and kind of inspiring to watch the tenacity of these producers and these creatives say, hey, we've got to figure out how to make this work. Let's make it work. And I think that that's an amazing thing. And I think that that's inspiring for all of us who have been out of work for 6 months, who have dedicated our lives to this. It's a thing that I think a lot of people who, are fans of musical theater and are fans of theater sometimes don't understand that this is often for many of us not just a job, it's a way of life, it's a lifestyle, it's something we've committed everything to. And it's weird to watch that kind of be frozen or potentially slip away.
Yeah. And how is morale over in America? You must have lots of friends who were in shows that suddenly got paused.
Yeah. Morale is low right now. A lot of people are moving out of the city, at least temporarily. A lot of people have gone home to be with their families. It's because rent is so high and the city is so expensive on its own. Especially because they know that it's going to probably be at least another 6 months till we're back. It's been tough. Several casts got COVID as a cast.
Ooh.
At the very beginning of this. I know COVID went through Moulin Rouge, Come From Away, and at least one other cast, like a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
Very early on, and for the most part, everybody was okay. And so, people are nervous. People are now trying to find ways to create things, but at the end of the day, a lot of us feel like theater via Zoom is not theater, it's film and TV, and that's a different medium, and like a lot of us also do film and TV, but it's not really the same. Which is why I'm very thankful that I actually get to perform here in person.
Yeah, is it going to be weird to actually have a face-to-face? When was the last time you said you did some work at the Box before?
Yeah, but that was creative stuff. I guess the last performance that I had was probably January or February.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, January or February was the last, proper theater show that I got to do. Which was, crazy.
Do you feel a bit apprehensive about being live again.
Yeah. Also, we're playing most of these venues seat about 150 to 200 seats.
Yeah.
And we're only allowed to sell 30 to 40 tickets to every show.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to look out at a very kind of mostly empty house, but know that we're sold out, which is going to be a weird. It's less weird for this immersive show because I talk directly to the audience. There's, I don't have to put up a fourth wall. So I get to have moments with them, which I think will feel better than if I was, trying to do a musical right now.
And you said you've taken Shakespearean influences, and so is this set in modern day, or is it set?
It's set in modern day, and it's set now, and it's kind of the idea of what would it look like if we sat around a campfire and told ghost stories?
Yeah.
Or brought back the old tradition where a medium would come to your house and set up a seance in your living room for your dinner guests. What is that experience like now? I talk about the history of spiritualism. We do some demonstrations of period mediumship from different eras of spiritualism, and then we turn it on the audience. And for the last piece of the show, I'm no longer the medium. We pick an audience member to be the medium for the rest of the night. And things get fun and interesting from there. But at the end of the show, I get to share a ghost story of mine. I'm not somebody who really believes in ghosts or paranormal things all that much, especially somebody who studied all these things, because everything we do in the show is all the period parlor tricks that were done by fraudulent mediums, in the Victorian era till now. So nothing high tech, nothing modern, but understanding how all that works. I had an experience as a teenager that I've never been able to explain. I had a weird ghost experience that has always made me question what my beliefs actually are. So this show is all about how do we present both of those things in tandem.
Ah. And have you had to do a lot of research into the...
There's been a lot of research, just because, as we tell these stories about these real people, I want to do them as honestly and realistically as possible, as well as understand how all the trickery works.
Yeah.
Because some of the things that we do in the show are very complicated, but seem so simple to the audience. And astonishing, and the lengths that some of these mediums would go to create these experiences is very interesting.
Sounds really, really good.
It's going to be fun.
Right time when the weather's starting to change and we're coming into October. People love it, don't they?
I mean, I know that I do. I know that the Halloween industry in the U.S. is something like $100 billion industry just in the month of October.
Yeah.
I know it's starting to catch on here more and more as, something to do. But it'll be interesting to see what British audiences think of this show.
And what made you bring it to Britain and not do it in the US?
I was able to do the show here because I would not be able to perform live in the US. Second of all, there's a thing, so spiritualism started in the United States with these girls called the Fox sisters. They unwittingly created an entire religion. But that religion very quickly moved to England and really caught hold here even more than in the States. And so I thought, how interesting would it be to take this experience, this kind of homage, but also, an examination of these girls and bring it to where it really kind of fostered and became its own thing. Plus, the nice thing is we're playing these interesting historic spaces here that really don't exist in the States.
Incredible. And so people need to look at your website, mrdustyrose.com.
Yes, MrDustyRose.com/ghost show for the ghost show things, or MrDustyRose.com for the Dusty Rose things.
Dusty Rose would make a great drag name.
It's true. It's true. When I was picking the name for Dusty Rose, I work with a lot of, burlesque and sideshow performers, and they all have really great pun names.
Yeah.
And part of me wishes that I had just been smart enough to create something that was just a little bit more clever. I just like the way that Mr. Dusty Rose rolls off the tongue.
No, so you design it as a one-man show, but is there scope to incorporate other characters? If a Mrs. Dusty Rose, for example, or an assistant that you could write in when you do eventually are allowed to work with other people?
Yes, and even though it can be Mr. Dusty Rose's ghost show, it doesn't have to be Mr. Dusty Rose that performs it.
Yeah.
It was originally just called Ghost Show, and the producers were like, when you Google Ghost Show, you're on the 32nd page. But when you Google Mr. Dusty Rose's Ghost Show, you're the first thing that comes up, so we're changing the name of the show. So that was a marketing and branding decision. But I think that Ghost Show can live on with other people and their own stories, their own experiences, which I think is great.
Amazing. Well, thank you very much. It sounds incredible. Hopefully I'll be able to check it out when it comes to London.
Yes, please come join us.
I'm to Manchester now to see that. Sounds incredible, the venue.
It's all the venues are great. The venue in London, I think it used to be an old nightclub, and now it's a church space, but it's also an art space. Yeah. It's very cool and also creepy in its own right. It's very interesting to create a show to tour for like this. We tour the show in 2 suitcases. That's it. And because of the restrictions, we don't rig anything. There's no, all those old tricks with fishing line and mouse traps. And we can't do any of that because there's no consistency venue to venue. It's all about the stories and the storytelling, which is, scary as an actor to know that everything is in your hands.
Yeah. Right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And enjoy the show tonight.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
Don't drink too much.
No promises.